Hello, this is Laren with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be going over a conversion I've been working on. This is from the DnD Beyond website. It's the Starforge Venture. It was basically set for people to use in conjunction with the Big B's book that has just dropped just the other day. So we started off, I actually worked on the map a little early. So in Fantasy Grounds, there is some requirements to convert the map, basically because it's too big. So in another episode that I had done about a week ago or so, I converted the map, and then I actually colored it a little bit. I set up the line of sight and the lighting in here, and kind of quarantine the buildings off, so we have a kind of a working, functioning map. I even put the little birds and the fish in the water, and also some smoke coming off the forge. So I kind of went the extra mile, which you really don't have to do. I could have just put the map in there and put the grid on it, and maybe did some of the occluders and called it good. But I actually went in and kind of colored it and embellished it a little bit, so it's not so generic. And it's a lot more pleasing to the eye, because it was kind of like a black and white map, or well, blue and kind of a classic map, which I don't mind sometimes. But I kind of want the color. It's just my preference. But you don't have to do that. It's definitely a labor of love doing these things. So one of the things that you'll want to start with, and that's something I mentioned in the last video, is the images. So I got the artwork out of the adventure itself. So if I go to the Giants of the Starforge, there's not a whole lot of artwork here, and it's not a very big adventure, so this shouldn't take very long to convert if you don't do all the bells, balloons, and whistles. But I grabbed the artwork out of there, which is one of the things you're going to want to do when you're doing conversions. One of the first things is probably to extract the artwork out of there. And one of the things that you might end up doing is up here in the design notes, I might actually copy and paste this and use this for artwork so that it will carry over into Fantasy Grounds. And I'll actually make this a photo. So I can take a screenshot of this and you just kind of trace around it, and then use this as something that I might end up putting inside the reference manual when I go get ready to build that. So at first I'm going to be building all the assets, and at the very end I start building the reference manual, because I want to make sure that everything is done before I start linking stuff and building that, because I don't like to have to keep jumping around, and that's one of the things you want to try to avoid when you're doing conversions. So I'm taking essentially the artwork and just kind of copying and pasting it out of the actual book, leaving it the original size. And then what I might do is click on it, and in this case I can edit this photo and take out the kind of this white border and see if it does it, because there's a function here where I can just take out the background. Yeah, so it took the background out. So that's what I want. So I'll insert this graphic later in the Fantasy Grounds. So if I go to share, in this case I'm using Canva to lay this out. But if I go to this download area, I can specify which piece of graphic I want. I got more than one, so I'm not going to do all of them, but I might as well just do it just so I have them. So I'm going to go ahead and hit download, and that will take care of those, and I'll put those in the campaign folder, at least the one that we started with. So these are just some of the things that you're going to have to deal with when you're making these. And then the next step probably would be to make some tokens. So that would be something that we could do. So if I go into the actual module itself and scroll through here, there's not a whole lot of artwork in this. There's just a few NPCs down here at the bottom, and here's the map that I use. So this is the GM map with all the labels. So that'd be my next step, is to label the map, so that way I don't have to have two separate maps. So we could do that in this adventure or in this. So we can go in here and create another layer for this adventure. So that way, when we're playing or when I'm running this, I don't have to refer back to the GM map. It'll already be included. So I can, right now I got all these layers locked, but essentially I can unlock this one. But I could put a separate layer that's going to have assets for labels and such. So what I'm going to do is go into the assets, and I want to make sure I'm in the images area, and then I'm going to look for map symbols. I guess that'll be my keyword. I never really quite know what to search for because I really don't know what I have, to be honest. But here's a regional map pack, so you got like little symbols like that, so it's not exactly what I was looking for. But there you have these symbols, tiles, brushes, decorations. So let's look at the symbols. Nope. So I'll just go back up to the next one and then go to decorations. Let's see what's in there. Yeah, so these are map type things that you would use to build a map. So I'm looking for, let's go with numbers, because that's all I really need are numbers, so I can number the rooms. So no number, so let's see if we can. Okay, so let's try symbols. Yeah, that's just that. So you're gonna have numbers in this map pack if you have a subscription to the Fantasy Grounds art packs, or you can bring in your own too. So I'm gonna put map asset, see if that comes up. Might be markers. See, that's the thing, is I don't know what they would have called it. So let's try label. Yeah, so let me go back. Might be not doing this right. Okay, so let me try label. Okay. So it's sorta, kinda what I wanted. Yeah, not quite. Let's try marker. Okay. So here we go. Death markers, tombstones. There's an asset pack. There is death markers and Game Master's art kit. Let's see what that is. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So this shows like symbols, which would be useful in another situation. Let's try markers. Nope, I just tried that. So essentially, you're gonna get some numbers and layer those on the map. So this is kind of a exercise in the futility here, because if you're not sure what the map pack is called, it's hard to search for it. So I think that in the future I'd probably find those and then link those down on the bottom before I do the show. But I'm going to go ahead and show you this pain point here for me so that you can go through the same problem that I'm going through. Let's see, so I can't remember what exactly they named that particular set, because it's an asset pack. So let me try Fantasy Grounds map. I know it's FG map. Okay, so that's a good search term. So FG space and then whatever, and then you're gonna just go through, and I guess that's the best way. But now you got hundreds of different things here. So here's floors, decorations, brushes. So you got to go through all of these just to find the assets. So there is a extension out where you can start collecting all of your assets and putting them into an organized area so that you're not going through this. Because this is one of my chief complaints about the assets in Fantasy Grounds is it's very hard to find anything. So there's, I mean, you can search for them, but you got to know what you're searching for. So if you don't know the name of the asset or what you have in your asset folder, you're kind of SOL. So I don't even remember what, I know there is a map pack for it because I've used it, and you know, it's one of those things where when you go into Fantasy Grounds, you don't really know exactly what you're looking for. It might take you a little bit. So here's regional map pack decorations. That's not what we want. There is a pack that just has labels. So there's underground, there's town maps, there's settlements. So I mean, this is like going through like tons of different assets just to figure out where they're at. Yeah, so FG. This is crazy. So I don't even have a way to search. Like, I tried number, and it didn't come up with anything. Not at the time, anyways. So here we go. This will work. So I don't mind using these as plates, but that's not exactly what I was looking for. Oh, here it is. FGGM symbol. So that's what it was. So this is FG base numbers. There we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to check to see how many rooms we're going to have, or how many areas. So I want to go back into the DnD Beyond map. So we got, let's see, we got the bridge, see there. I'm going to go down through the adventure. So there's 6 potential spots, so that's not too bad. So what I'm going to do is come in here and just drag these numbers down to the hotkeys, and that's where I'm going to use them. But if I had the extension loaded, I could have had them all on a sidebar type thing, but next time I'll do that. So I'm just going to drag the 6 of these down to individual slots, so when I go to use these, I don't have to keep opening and closing this window, because that's another thing that will burn a lot of time, is when you're opening and closing the asset window every 5 minutes to find something. That can be annoying and time consuming. So, alright, so those are the symbols I'm going to use for the map. And then looking at the map, the first location on here is the bridge, this broken bridge. So what I'm going to do is go to the tile area under layers, and then I want to find number 1. Drag and drop this into this area up here. I want to make sure I don't have anything selected, and I'm going to drop that down here and see what size it is. That's 6 by 6. That's rather large. So I'm going to go with 2. Let's see what that looks like. So I want to kind of place it kind of centered. Alright, that looks pretty good. So this is basically my numbering system that I'm going to be placing instead of using the GM map. It's a little extra work, but it's worth it in the end. So again, I'm going to go and drag number 2 and do the same thing. It goes out here in the water, so I think right here will be fine. And I want to change it to 2, which is the scale. That's 2 by 2 for square. So let's see what we get here. Yep. So that works. So basically, I'm going to have a layer or several layers that's going to have the numbers in it. So I might as well make a folder. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and change this to, I'll call this, let's call this map numbers or something like that. This is DM only, so when you're getting ready to play, you can hide this layer, or you can just show it for the game master. So you can actually hide those during gameplay. You can make it visible just to share with players or GM only, and that's what you want. You can set that to GM only, and then visible, and then only the GM would see that. So that's how you. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So I accidentally clicked on the map and I still had the tile thing selected. So you want to be careful with that. Make sure you're on the pointer if you're going to move stuff around, because a lot of times what you'll do is you'll place something, and then instead of switching over to the selection tool, you'll click on the map to try to move something, and it will stamp another stamp. So you got to kind of watch that. But nonetheless, not a big deal. It's just a very common thing. So I'm going to go ahead and place one over here, which is number 3. So I want to grab the number 3 symbol, drop it in here, change this to 2. I wish that could stay, like I can set that so I don't have to keep changing it, but that's alright. So just go ahead and hit this, and that'll be for 3. And basically, it doesn't... Oh, great. So I'm going to hit Control Z on that, because I don't want it to be hidden underneath that room. So what I will do is I will select it and move it so I can see it. So I'll just move it aside. In the map, it's actually inside the building, but I have it over here on the right, so, and then I have it selected, so that's not too big. Not a big deal. So number 4 is the pathway on the map that goes to the star fort, so that's in here. So I'm going to grab the number 4, drag and drop it into the tile area again. Change it to 2 because I want them to all be kind of uniform. And now I'm going to place it in the pathway, kind of where it is on the actual map. So there's that one. And I just noticed I have an extra 2 down here, so I'll get rid of that. Okay. And now, again, I'm going to go take number 5 and drag that up here. Change it to 2 by 2. That's the number of squares. And then that goes over here by the altar, so I'm going to place it down here so it doesn't get buried under that shadow too much. So there's that. Why does that look so much bigger? Oh well. Not going to sweat that. So the number 6 goes inside here, this building, so I think I'm going to place it off to the side, so at least it's not smack dab in the middle. I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but I have the PDF or the website on the panel over here, Fantasy Grounds, and it's basically showing me the numbers, and then all the corresponding text is underneath it. And then there's a link for the player's map version, which is the map that I used to make this one. And then now I'm just adding the labels to it. You know, it's probably a lot easier just to take this map and make a copy of it and use that for reference, but I prefer to just only have one map so I don't have to dig through 3 or 4 images just to have reference material for it. So take that and that. So some of this process can get a little arduous, so if you're going to be doing your own conversions and you're taking maps and text out from other content, it's going to take you a little bit. It's not something you can, it depends on the nature of what you're trying to achieve and also the content you're taking from. But in this case, this is a website, it's pretty well formatted, but you're going to run into some PDFs that have some pretty crappy maps and pretty crappy text. And some of the text is photos, so you can't even use the text from it. You'll have to retype it or do a OCR scan on it. It's crazy. So there's lots of things that you're going to find that might be a little annoying, but once you kind of get a system down, it's not as bad as it, as it appears to be. So that's 6. Well, what do you know? I did not I did not follow my own advice here, so let me fix that. Okay, so again, let's go drag the 6 up here into the tiles, change this to 2 by 2, which I forgot to do, and now stick it on there. There we go. So the map is labeled now, and what will happen is when you have this set to GM only, the players won't see the numbers. Only you will, as the GM. So that's just a little bonus thing there. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this so that it cannot be moved or accidentally drawing another one on top of it or something weird like that. So there's the numbers. So that's something you want to do if you want to save room. Oh, how does this thing keep coming back? Let me unlock this. It must be when I'm doing Control Z. It must be doing that. Okay. So that is gone. Okay, so that's that. So this is the map that came with the adventure, and as you can see on the left here, towards the bottom, I have the original map up in the DnD Beyond. So I just took the player map and I resized it. And I used the program, the Map-Align, and that helped me straighten up the grid so it would be so so off, and then I just shrunk the map in half because it was huge. I mean, it was just way too big. So a map like this is probably not a good thing in Fantasy Grounds. Although I did reduce this, and then I did convert it into a WebP file. So the footprint of this file went from like 20 megabytes to like 6, and that's pretty good for savings. And then when you add the line of sight and all these effects and everything, all that stuff adds up. So you know, you got to be careful on how large your maps are and how complicated they are. If I go to the line of sight area, you can see I've already placed all the lighting and such in here. So interesting fact here, you got these doorways, and you open them up and they go straight down into this forge. So it's kind of an interesting area. But the Star Forge has a little bit of lore behind it. I don't want to give away too much of it, but essentially this is a high-level adventure that you can run on top of Bigby's to kind of check out the features. Oh, what happened there? Oh, I see. So when I moved this map, it kind of made the assets disappear. How weird. Little glitch there, I think. But anyway, so I did put some smoke here to come out off the forge, and then I had like all this colored stuff, and then I put the occluders on the rooms, and then I added the birds and the fish, and you know, then we just finished the label. So that's pretty much done. Like, there's not much else I need to do to it. I could chest it, like put an NPC on there, but yeah, I'll do that later. But essentially, once you get all the artwork in, and you have it labeled. So I have some other stuff here. So these are, you know, things that are coming out of the adventure, and these are probably going to be used as tokens for NPCs. But they can also be used as assets that you can place on a background and then kind of make your own scene with it, using the assets that come with the modules. So Smiteworks has taken all these out when they do their adventure conversions, and that they they're going to leave them as WebP now. So they're going back and re-optimizing all the files, because it actually cuts down on the load time, and it also cuts down on the bandwidth. So they're going back and changing all these assets from JPEG or PNG into WebP. I think Doug said he just did the monster manual. That was probably a lot of work. But he just went in and converted all of the artwork into a transparency WebM file, and it probably cut down the module size almost in half. So that's quite a big savings for hard drive space, for downloading when you use the updater, and then also for transferring that information back and forth between you and your players, because that's going to save them a lot of headache and bandwidth. So optimizing these images for online play is optimal, and they don't look bad. Like, I didn't notice any quality degradation even when I shrunk the map and I converted it over, and it's a compressed image. It still looks pretty good, so I didn't have any issues with that. And the map itself, I mean, you look at it over here, it's not anything very detailed, so it probably wouldn't make a difference anyways. But if you had a very detailed map, I don't think the compression will be as harsh as it would with a JPEG. If you take a PNG file, or you have a JPEG file, and you compress that down, like this map here, I had to take it and cut it in half, essentially, as far as dimensions go. It was huge. It was like 3,000 by 5,000 or something like that, and I got it cut in half to like 2,000 something. Because when you start getting past 4K, that's when you start having problems with the map, the images displaying properly. And then people say, I can't see the map, and you're sharing this big Herkin map with your players. So it looks pretty optimized. I'm not getting any lag. I got the birds and the little fishies on here. So it looks pretty good. So that's the map. So take the time to do the map and all the images. Do all that first. Get that out of the way. Organize them in the back folder. So right here, I don't like the way I titled this. This looks really crappy right here. So what you want to do, before you link anything and before you attach anything to any other part of your adventure, is you want to make sure these file names are what you want them to be. And the rest of these look good, but I don't like this one because it's ugly. It's not formatted right. It looks like crap. So what I'm going to do is something that you probably want to do before you even put it into Fantasy Grounds. So I'm going to go to the asset folder, and I'm under images, and then go to campaign. And the map here is this, but what I'm afraid of is if you try to rename it, it might corrupt the line of sight and stuff. So before you do anything like that, you want to make sure you rename it in the folder part first, and then you refresh your asset folder, and then you make your changes. If you do it now, like after I've done all this work, it could potentially break the line of sight because it's associated with the file name, and if I change that, I don't have any guarantee that it's going to carry over that change. So I'm kind of concerned about that. So I'll leave it as it is. But going forward, if you're going to do any conversion work and you have images that you've imported, make sure that you organize them and that you name them accordingly. I think when I did this conversion, I thought this was okay, but now that I look at it, it looks like hell. And the other thing is to make groups. So in this case, this one map is part of a group called Starforge Adventures. I haven't imported any of these into that or drug them in there. So when you use this drop-down list, you can make your own category, which is like a filter or separator. And I'm not selecting anything, I'm just using the drop-down. And then I'm going to drag these into that folder because I want them to go with everything that goes with this adventure. So this is how you organize it. So when you go to export the module at the end, that's what you're going to end up with. So I'm going to start getting more into the text part, but I just wanted you to know that the first thing I normally tackle is the images, and that would go also to the tokens. So I'll do another video on the tokens because I don't want to break out of Fantasy Grounds just yet, but I'm going to take the tokens here from this and convert them. I can actually do that now. There's only a few, so it won't take that long. But you need to see the work that goes into this. So I'm going to go to the old handy dandy, let's go with token stamp. And I'll move that over so you can see what I'm doing. So this is Roll Advantage token stamp. And what I'm going to hide this browser link for now. So basically, I'm going to drag over the art that I extracted out of the module. So I want to go into the folder where these are at and take these and just kind of drop them in here and kind of make my own token. So these already have kind of PNG. A lot of the stuff is removed out of it. But in this case, you're kind of wanting to focus more on the head, maybe the neck area, but you don't need the entire token. So you're just trying to get this to, a decent point. And then this, since it's a transparency, it's going to keep this transparent background. So I might change the background color to something like a red or something. I don't know, it might be a little much. Maybe a gray. Something like that looks alright. But you want that contrast so that when you're looking at this thing on the map, you can kind of see what's going on. Otherwise, you don't have any contrast in there. So I'm just going to play around with the colors until I come up with something that's going to stand out a little bit more. So I'm thinking I like the kind of the grayish color. Black looks okay, but I kind of want more of a kind of a gray. There we go. And let's move it over there. And then I will put a little bit of transparency on it. Not much, just a little bit. There we go. So you're going to play around with these until you get it right. But these make, you can either have squares or circles. So I'm going to make the circle. So this is going to be, probably going to have to readjust this, but I'm going to use the silver ring, but you got all these different varieties here. And then you can also upload your own, so you can do this one if you want, which isn't too bad. I kind of like this raised 3D looking one. And then for the border tint, I might actually use the red. And then use that as a way to kind of fix that. Now I'm going to go ahead and download it. These, by default, download at 256 by 256, which is totally adequate for what we're doing. So these are probably going to be large creatures, so you can have those, you know, around there, and it should scale fairly decently, so you don't have to do any reduction or changes. But normally on a large creature, or huge I should say, would be like 300 by 300. A large creature would be 200 by 200, and then all the medium ones 100 by 100. But I'm going to leave it as it is. I don't think I need to change that. This is not a commercial product. If I was doing a commercial product, though, I'd probably resize that so it wouldn't be so... it takes less room, essentially. When you optimize the images, you go the extra mile and get a pretty decent-sized module without breaking the bank. Because you have a bunch of images in the module, and it can get really messy, and it just doesn't play out good. So let's grab this one. I think that's pretty good right there. And gonna change the border tint to like this bluish color. Nah, not blue. Maybe this purplish color. And then we'll download that. And there's 2 tokens, and then one last image. So this is, I've said, this is the work that you got to go through to do these conversions. You know, if you want tokens and art and that sort of thing, you're gonna have to go through all this. One of those things that it's a labor of love. It's, you know, it's not something you can slam dunk. A lot of people want that instant. I want this now. You know, when it comes to conversions, it's not really going to happen like that, unfortunately. So here's this one. That's my favorite one so far. I like this one. This is cool. Fire Giantess. And I think that's good for her face. Got her hair in there a little bit of a neck area. So we want to see her face, essentially. So I think that'll do it. And I'm going to hit download. So once I have that, I'm going to open up the folder that they went into and take these and copy them or cut them. And then I'm going to go into Fantasy Grounds now. So bring up Fantasy Grounds. And then what you want to do is go to your Assets folder. And you want to click on tokens. So tokens, generally, you want those to be shared with the entire table, and you don't want to necessarily have to put them in a separate folder. But I'm going to for this. So if I want to export this and I want to make sure the tokens are part of the campaign, I'm going to put them in a tokens folder in the campaign folder. However, if I was going to use it for my own table and I didn't plan on doing any conversion or, you know, any exporting, then I would probably just put it in the data folder, and then I have a folder called custom where these things reside, and then I would just open the folder up here, and now we have a campaign's tokens folder. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control V, and that's where the tokens are going to be for the campaign. So instead of saying token 1, 2, 3, now I got to go back and figure out what the title of these things are. So not only is it, you know, work to you know, change them and download them and convert them and all that, but now I need to go into the adventure itself, which I'm going to turn that back on in OBS. So I'll turn this back on, and I'm going to close this. I'll leave that open. And basically, what I want to do here is rename those, because I don't want to lose the files yet, which I just did. Let me go back. Assets, and I want to hit refresh, and that will pull in the campaign assets. And here's the tokens. So they look pretty good. I just want to retitle them. So I'm going to click on folder, and I want to go... what I'm going to do is lead it with TKN for token, underscore, and then go back and find out what the names of these things are. So in this case, this is one of them. So let me bring up the website again. So this is a Cinder Hulk. So I'll change this to TKN, and I'll do TKN1 underscore, or you can do the name first if you want. But I want the sorting part, you know, that's kind of what I'm after. Then underscore Hulk. So this is the first token that I renamed. And I don't have it associated with any NPCs or anything yet, so this is the time to do it. If you start linking these to an NPC, and then you end up changing these folder names around, that's going to break the link. So you want to do all this first before you associate this with any of the NPC records. That's where it doesn't necessarily update. Like when you hit refresh, it refreshes the file names and such, but it won't necessarily relink the old token name and associate it with the NPC. I don't trust that. I've screwed myself over many times from not paying attention to that. So the next one is the Furbolg Wanderer, which is what we have here. So this will be TKN2 and then underscore Furbolg underscore Wanderer. So this is just a naming convention that you'll want to kind of start doing when you're doing these conversions, because all this extra little namby-pamby stuff up front, it really makes a difference in the end. So when you do all this work up front, you're going to have a lot less screwing around when it comes to that. So that was the Hulk. Yeah, so this one is the Fire Giant of Evil Fire. What a crazy name. So TKN, I would just call it like Fire Giant of Flame. That would have been a much easier title. I don't know why they picked that. Let's see, so TKN3 Fire Giant of Evil Fire. What a crazy name. So well, now that I've named all those and renamed them, now I want to come back here. See, these still have the old names, so you need to hit refresh, and now they'll have the updated names. So whenever you move files around or you change stuff or you fix it, you need to refresh that. And then if you've already linked these to an NPC in this case, I would go back and relink it, because once you change this file name, that might be in the database set up that way to where it's tied in with the old file name. So you want to be careful. I don't guarantee that that's going to update once you hit this refresh button. And that's where a lot of people get screwed up when they're doing conversions and stuff, is they'll link a bunch of stuff together and then make a change, but they don't change everything. They only make the change to the one part of it. And that can be a problem. So you want to be careful with that when you're doing conversion, especially for a commercial product. You know, if it's your own, so be it. But when you're actually doing it for money and getting paid for it or whatever, you want to be extra careful about that kind of stuff. It's one of those things that you'll learn the hard way, for sure, because I've done it. I've made that mistake many times. I want my Oompa Loompa now. Yeah. Alright, so now that we have those in there, that's pretty much all I need to do for tokens. Now, if I was going to run this for myself, I would probably do a couple other tokens, like some variations, you know, that sort of thing, but I'm good. I think we're good. Okay. So we got some tokens and we got some images, and then I also have the images in the images folder, which is the full image, so that we can use these in other situations. So there's a lot of things going on with images, so you want to get a lot of this out of the way in the beginning. But one of the things I'm going to do for myself to make things easier for me is I'm going to go to notes, and I have the show notes here that has all the resources. So at the end of the video, I'll have all the stuff that I used and links and stuff in here. But I'm going to go ahead and make another link, and this is just going to be my text dump area. That's what I call it, text dump. And all I'm going to do is take all of the text from the adventure and just dump it in here into one big fat text file. And I don't recommend doing this for an entire campaign, but this adventure is rather short. I don't have to worry too much about the size of it, so it won't be a big chore for me to edit that. But if you're going to be doing these conversions, you want to kind of avoid doing a big data dump that's bigger than it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just take the entire adventure in this case and just copy and paste the whole thing, because I don't really want to mess around too much with going back and forth. And then I can always reformat this in Fantasy Ground. So if I need something to look at, I can look at I got two screens, so I can look at the other screen. And then write it straight away. I mean, it looks okay, but you're going to notice double spaces. So this happens a lot when you're working with text that comes out of PDFs or websites. So one of the things you can do is you can right click, and there's a thing called cleanup text. It kind of works similarly to Control J, except for you don't lose as much of your formatting, because Control J actually will strip out a lot more. I don't necessarily want that. So now what all you have to do now is go through and reformat all this stuff, and then when I'm done getting to the point where all this formatting's done, then I can take and start building the reference manual and just copy and paste over, and it will keep the formatting too. So this is kind of like my staging area. And like this thing here, this Giants of the Forge, if you learn the shortcuts for text to create the red bold area, I can just hit Control 2 after I highlight that. And then for the adventure background, I might hit Control B for a bold letter. So once you learn the shortcuts for the text, it's way easier to work with text. So the Giants of the Forge, this actually isn't a bold letters or that, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Control 1, which is regular text, and then Control B. So I'm just going to go down and systematically look, and there's some design notes here. This is the thing I was telling you about earlier that I copied that image from. So I'm going to take the actual image and put it into Fantasy Grounds, but then I'm also going to have the text. So if someone wants to copy and paste, you know, they can do that easier, and it's not just an image. But this is just kind of a design note that tells you to follow along and how they created this adventure using the Bigby's module. I don't even have anything loaded right now when I'm working, because I don't want to get confused, and I don't want to link directly from those source books. So if I have to do anything out of this, I'm going to go to it in DnD Beyond, and then I'm going to link it and create my own copy of it, so I have to be dependent on any books. It's okay to do that for yourself, but if you're designing content, you definitely don't want to necessarily require people to load 3 books just to play the adventure, depending on what it is. So there's some guidelines on that. You got to be kind of careful of copyright, but if it's SRD stuff, you can redo that so that it wouldn't require them to load the SRD. And by the way, in modules, that's what I have loaded. And the only reason I have this loaded is so I have a little bit of reference, and if I want to load an NPC to test things out, you know, that kind of thing, I'll have just the guts of the rules. I don't have the art, I don't need all the other stuff necessarily. And then if I did want to reference the book in here where it says go to chapter 4, I could create a link and say that, you know, you're going to go to this part of the Giant Bigby's book, and then this part, and I could do that in this section and make direct links to the product. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a certain way you want to do it, and when you link it, you want it to call upon the correct source and that sort of thing. So there is a way to do it, but I try to avoid that, you know, especially if it's my own stuff. I don't want to require someone to have to load 3 books just to play it. And for me, it's like, I already have the books, and I don't need to link them together. But if you're going to sell this to somebody, or move it forward to a commercial product, you're going to have to consider those sort of things. So it's kind of a design choice. And honestly, when I pick up adventures and I look at how they're put together, I'm a little bit more critical about that, because I get pissed off when I see the laziness, or I notice that they didn't link something, or and that's kind of a preference thing, and it's kind of up to the interpretation of the person that's doing the conversion. However, if you run games and you notice that there's things missing and you have to go and link stuff together, that's okay once in a while, and you're probably just doing that for preference. But when you see that throughout an entire venture and you're having trouble running the content because it's all over the place, that's something you want to avoid. So when you're linking stuff together, you got to be careful with how you're doing it and what stuff's linked to what, because it becomes a big mess, in other words. So you don't want to break the bank doing that, and you kind of want to make things consistent as well. So when you're going through all your chapters, like I'm kind of going through right now and doing some of the formatting, but when I'm done, I'll just be able to copy and paste all this into the reference manual, and it won't take that long to do, because I'm doing a lot of the formatting now. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And then I'm just kind of going through and making the edits that I need to, and then I'll just double check the website occasionally to see how we're looking there, how it's formatted, to get kind of close. So that was the design notes that we were looking at. Yep. So running the adventure, that's bold. Adventure hooks, that looks right. And then they have this thing here, has bold. So this is all I'm doing now, is taking the information and kind of reformatting it. Just getting started. Now this force. Okay, so here's the forced labor, Starforge. So it's based on the Starforge part. So the giants built the Starforge eons ago in a crater up the mountain. The site is named after a fallen star that formed the crater, and that the founding giants harnessed to power a massive furnace. So that's the deal with that. And then there's the Fireside Monastery. And then you'll see things like these, like for instance, the checks. Like, let's see if I can get to that part. Yeah, let me get through this first. Okay, so in the Fireside Monastery, there is a part where you're going to be getting a challenge, essentially. So it says that a character who succeeds on a DC 13 persuasion check can get Evan to increase the reward. So basically, you can come in here and you can highlight that for the Game Master. So this is a kind of a preference formatting thing. Or if you want to, you can make it italics instead so that it stands out. So when you're running the adventure, it stands out right there that there's a check going to be, going to have to be made. And then I noticed some money here, so I'm probably going to need parcels for that, because there's a reward for up to 5,000 and there's another one for 8,000. So I'll probably make two separate parcels for those. There's things that you want to look through the adventure so you kind of have an idea of what you're going to be up against. So already you're going to have some loot, you got the maps, there's going to be a couple tables. So I want to get all that stuff done before I do any linking or building the actual reference manual, because I kind of don't want to have to keep diving back and forth in between these things. So I'm just going to be taking this one by one here, and let's see, there's the meeting of her, and then there's the acidic lake. So that sucks. Here is the disgraced giant, and Lair of the Red Dragon. And then here's some role-playing notes for Diasma. Kind of like her name. It's weird, but I kind of like it. And here's her challenge. So I'm just kind of going through here and kind of taking a look at the sort of things I'm going to have to do. So here's some fireside contests. So I'm just highlighting and using Control B for bold. So there's a prize, and it's a potion of fire giant strength. So they have it highlighted and italicized, so I'm going to do the same thing. Control I to italicize that. And then here again is a DC 15 strength check. So I want to highlight that again, because I want it to stand out for the Game Master. And then there's another one, a successful DC saving throw for Dex, DC 10. So it's up to you how you want this stuff to stand out, but it really helps the Game Master when you're running an adventure to have this stuff sticking out, so you can see what's going on. There's another one, it's a Dexterity saving throw down here. Prize, and then there's a potion of flying, so we'll hit the so there's different things going on here depending on who you're going up against. There's cloud giants, there's stone giants, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So this is where it's like some kind of contest, and then you compete with these guys, and then if you win, then you get a certain thing. So here's Qual's Feather token, Control I, and then here's a Star Forge. So that's basically the gist of this. Now, if you have a larger adventure, you're going to probably want to do this in pieces. You can go straight into building a reference manual. So if you were, so inclined, if you go to modules and you click on Builder, you can start building. You can make a new chapter and start building it here, adding your images. But I want to get all of the work done first. So all the labor, all the hard stuff, because this is actually the easier part. You're just copying and pasting and putting in your images and such. But when this stuff I'm doing now, this preliminary work, is all the heavy lifting. So that's just copying and pasting and formatting, and then like making all the assets. Like I got to make all the NPCs, that sort of thing. So this is where the work comes in. And this is the stuff that people don't want to do typically, because it's a lot of work. So basically I'm going through and kind of reformatting the text that I brought over. And then I'm getting an idea of what I'm dealing with. So, I go down the adventure here, and I can start to see, where things are. There's encounters in here that I have to build, and then the locations, I got to set those up. So there's a bit of work to this. So even though the adventure's short, the amount of work that goes into it is still there, because you're still formatting the images, you're still formatting text, you're organizing it, and then you're going to build your reference manual, link everything together, that sort of thing. And then you're going to export it. And so the very end thing is exporting, but right before that, you're going to do all your linking. And once you have everything built, like your tables, your NPCs, you got all the art straightened out, you've got all your text formatted, you got chapters figured out, then you're going to make those file associations at the end and link it together and then export it. So when you do export, you can do that either from down here. There's an export button that you can do from here, or you can also do a right/export. It'll bring up the window. So here's the window. This is where you're going to set your module name, the file name actually, and then you're going to set your thumbnail. So if you have a little photo like a cover that you want to use, it only needs to be 100 by 100. And then you can select which record types. I usually select all, but if you know exactly which record types that you built, you can just select those. And then if you want a record view, like lists and those sort of things, or like a formatted list, you would select those. It's usually items, NPCs by CR, letter type, you know, that sort of thing. And then any assets that you're concerned about, like that you want to export with the module, like the tokens I made earlier, I could put those in here. So if I went to, you don't have to, I don't think anymore. It used to be that you'd have to put these in here if they're custom. So if I go to my assets and go to tokens and go to the campaign tokens, what I would do at this point is link these here. And that helps ensure that they're going to export with the module. It used to be that you had to do that. I don't know if you do anymore, but I still do it because the assets and exported data automatically included. So it says that down here, but these are the assets. This is an old habit from Fantasy Grounds Classic. So, you know, if that's something you're worried about, I'll put them down there. But I don't like when I have to go back and fix that crap. So I'm kind of gun shy about trusting that. I don't know why. I should trust it. As Zacchaeus and other people have told me I don't have to do that anymore, but I don't trust it because I've screwed myself over so many times doing that. But essentially, I think that's all I want to get into today. So I'll just keep working on this. I'll do videos on this occasionally, and as I get further along, we'll go through different steps. We'll do tables. We'll finish up the text formatting next time I come on here. We'll start working on the reference manual, which will be the last step. So hopefully this helps a little bit, gives you an idea of what you're getting yourself into, and gives you some tips and ideas of how to do this stuff. So take care, everyone. You have a great week. Tomorrow's Friday. Today is August 17, 2023, and we are using the Fantasy Grounds Unity platform version 4.4.3. So take care, everyone. You have